Brody and I had our Blue Hen Cups. I didn't even realize that, so we had to cheers start that off. Welcome back to a new episode of Feathers and Field Goals. We don't have a recap to give on a show. I guess we have a bowl recap. We have our place, we have our location, we have our opponent. So that's why I'm wearing my Falcons gear. They just came off a big Thursday night win against the Buccaneers, but we won't spend too much time on that. I just know the opponent doesn't like this team, so I had to wear it. The Blue Hens will be playing against the Louisiana Ragin Cajuns of the Sun Belt Conference. They have a first matchup between two schools, so like within that, that's super exciting within itself. Probably the best mascot matchup. Probably in the whole 2025 bowl slate. Thinking about it'll be in Mobile, Alabama. Maybe Delaware fans don't like that. I'm curious to get Dan and Brody's thoughts on this, but the 6A Ventures Bowl will be the first bowl in this new FBS era. Not the first bowl overall, because we know Brody likes the Boardwalk Bowl and the bowl history. So Brody, just 6A Ventures Bowl, Louisiana, and Mobile. What are your overall thoughts?
It's one of the worst bowls that we could have drawn in terms of just getting there. Kind of short of like maybe being in like the New Mexico Bowl, I think, which would have been a little bit more
The
challenging.
Hawaii Bowl on Christmas Eve.
Yeah, Hawaii Bowl on Christmas Eve. There's not a lot of direct flights to Mobile, Alabama necessarily. Dan and I are making the 15-hour drive from where I'm at in Maryland all the way down to Mobile, straight, with stops obviously at the Buc-ee's. There's a Capriati's in Harlot that I already know we're going to stop at. There's things like that. But 15-hour drive. It's at least like 2 hours from New Orleans, 2 hours from Tallahassee at least. So it's going to be interesting to see how many Blue Hens actually get there, besides the roster and the coaching staff, of course, equipment, personnel as well. I would have liked to see the Myrtle Beach Bowl. I think we talked about that. Dan wanted to see maybe a Northeast Bowl, the Military Bowl in Annapolis, or the Henway Bowl, the Pinstripe Bowl, something along those lines. But in terms of location, travel aside, in terms of location, the weather, the beaches in the Floribama Shore, the opponent that we're playing being pretty evenly matched to Delaware in terms of both on-field production and the style of play. It should be a really great game, a great experience once you get there. And to my knowledge, it's in a time slot where nothing else is happening, so that's also pretty good. But I have mixed feelings about it. But I'm happy to be there, and I'm excited to get down there with Dan.
Dan and Brody are road tripping. I guess I have like a mini road trip, flying to. I have a hybrid trip, so I'm flying to Atlanta, which is about 5 hours from Mobile. But my dad and I are stopping in Montgomery on the way, which is kind of like the perfect middle point to represent Conference USA as Jacksonville State's playing in the Salute to Veterans Bowl against Troy. It'll be a fun in-state matchup. Kind of like in the middle between the two. I think maybe I know one school was closer than the other. But that'll be fun. Definitely, if you can get down there Tuesday, Delaware fans to Mobile, if you're not going to do my itinerary, there's a lot going on in pregame. That'll be really fun. Dan, what were your thoughts on this, and what are you most looking forward to?
I have to admit, at first, a little bit of disappointment just because of logistics and thinking about, wow, we really are running into it and running up against it now. It is just enough separation maybe from Christmas and other peak holidays toward the end of the year. But hey, no one was going to be picky in the end. Anybody who is all watching the Iron Bowl live and on pins and needles, and then, of course, that's setting aside after the fact the different changes and bowl availability changes for teams and coaching transitions. But it was a case where you had to remind yourself from a Delaware perspective, hey, you're in the game, you're in the fight. You've got a chance to play one more game with so many players who mean so much to the course of this program under Ryan Carty and even prior to Coach Carty as well. So, and then I learned more about Mobile, the things that are down there, poking around about what to do in the area and having a chance to be in a new state mean, I've been lucky to be on the road for other games this season in the regular season, and this is an especially novel type of experience for me. So just looking at the events, most importantly for the players, though, and for the teams, the welcome reception set for Saturday, which will be the 13th. I mean, talking about it, it's got that lead up. It's got that runway to the game, much like a national championship in the FCS. I mean, you're talking about a neutral site matchup, so you get those teams to the same neutral site and have them have that runway to the game. So other events like the Player Service Project Day on Monday, like that's cool to see on the 68 Ventures Bowl site. Mardi Gras Parade the night before the game, just understanding, wow, yeah, that's what's in the area and that's big in the region. It's cool. It's cool. So it gives a flavor to the game that I didn't realize just looking at 68 Ventures Bowl and not knowing as much about any history to the game or how long the game under different names has been in that same location. So I think those things are cool to have a feel for and get an idea of. It'll be cool to follow along what Delaware football is posting and all the different looks at it until Brody and I can get on the ground and see it for ourselves on Tuesday as soon as we can.
I think my thoughts kind of fit both of you. I heard rumblings about Mobile before that Saturday, so I was trying to give a warning to myself and to these two to start to figure out how we're going to get there. But of course, always keeping options open because things change, especially on championship weekend. If teams go or teams opt out, and that changes things. I'm glad as a Delaware fan we didn't have to wait for that. We knew, like you said, the Iron Bowl was just kind of figuring out when and where. Overall, just super excited just to get down there. This will be a super fun experience. I think for everyone. It can be the family, it can be the players, the administration, the staff. Even Coach Carty said in his presser the day before the announcement on the Sunday after finding out, he's going to allow himself to have fun coaching on game day for a first. So you think about the offensive play caller, even when they put up 61 points, I don't really think he was having too much fun in the moment, maybe in reflection. But it sounds like he's going to let himself have some fun down in Mobile as well. So super excited to get down there. How about just quick around the room, the Ragin Cajuns. We're going to get into an interview with the Ragin Review to learn more about them on both sides of the ball, their history a little bit. But I mean, it's a team that we really know nothing about. So what's everyone's thoughts on Louisiana before we even get to learning more about the team itself?
Well, this is the hottest team in college football right now. If you look at their schedule, starting out 2-6, dropping a tough one to Southern Miss, their rivals. But then after that Southern Miss loss, they rattled off 4 straight wins against some pretty good teams. Hottest team in college football to clinch a bowl eligibility, 4 straight wins to make it 6-6. This is a team who preseason, thought that they were going to be playing James Madison in the Sun Belt Championship. So this season as a whole, I gather, has been kind of disappointing. But if you're a Ragin Cajuns fan, you're happy to be here at all. This is a team that's gone to 4 straight bowl games, I believe, this year included. And it's a team that stacks up against Delaware pretty well. They have similar styles of play. They can put up a lot of points. It's going to be an entertaining game. We'll get more into my score predictions later, as we do in every episode. But it should be pretty exciting. If nothing else, putting on a good spectacle for the Sun Belt commissioner. If down the line they get any ideas about where Delaware should go next. It's going to be playing another 2026 Sun Belt opponent from Louisiana. Of course, 1-0 against Louisiana Tech already this year. But they're going to have home field advantage as well, being in Mobile, not too far away from Lafayette. Of course, much farther away from Delaware. So that will be interesting as well. But kind of two teams coming up with different amounts of juice in this game. For Delaware, of course, it needs no explanation that this is a huge game for the program. First FBS bowl game. Depending on how you quantify what an FBS bowl game is when you go back so far. But Louisiana is coming in maybe a disappointing season. maybe not having the juice, maybe having some players hit the portal early. We'll see what that looks like closer to kickoff. We haven't heard too much news, maybe just a little bit of news coming out of Louisiana in terms of what players are opting out, what players are leaving for the portal. But it'll be interesting. There isn't a whole lot of tape that I've watched on this team, but surmising from maybe other commentary throughout the year, I've learned a little bit about the Cajuns. I watched their game against James Madison, and I was really pulling for them. Obviously, didn't get it done in Harrisonburg, but who did this year?
I gotta just say, I watched the ULM game because you said they were 2-6, and at the time when I was watching them, they were 5-6. And one last plug for the bowl tracker, that hyperlink. If you're still looking for it, I'm slowly turning that into our off-season tracker. I'm not ready for the off-season yet, but I just want to. I'm starting to put the pieces together for that, so when we can get into the holidays, we can jump off, because it's going to be a quick transition into the off-season after this bowl game. As if you're new to the college football, college athletics time, it's going to be moving. There's going to be some outs. There's going to be a lot of ins. So we'll be prepared for that on Feathers and Field Goals on the podcast and the website as we get into the new year. But Dan, I know you sit down in an extended conversation with the Ragin Review later on. So just a quick thought on them before you get into it, and then I want to transition us into our first interview with a highlight of another team, not football, before we get into it.
Yeah, I'll leave most of it to my convo with Gerry of Ragin Review, which was a raging good time. I have to say, it was good. And I know, Bryce, you were raving about your experience joining Ragin Review as a guest, representing Feathers and Field Goals there. So if folks haven't seen that yet, go check out Ragin Review meeting with Bryce. But I would just say this one thing sticking out, just looking at Louisiana's staff and trying to see, hey, any overlap, any connections. I did, and this is more in maybe the support staff category. And it's kind of like, well, if there's shared history with support staff, that maybe doesn't as much affect like actual game outcomes and how the game plays out, because you're thinking more direct coaches, of course, having a hand. But Clayton Carlin of Louisiana, he's coordinator of football operations. But previously, though, you go back, Clayton Carlin and Ryan Carty overlapping as DC and OC at Sam Houston in the years prior to Carty being at Delaware. So it's kind of an interesting, familiar name for different Delaware staff members who are coming from Sam Houston. But of course, by this point, for Coach Carlin now, if he's working in the support role, that's a little different at Louisiana. It's not as if like, oh, there may be as much overlap or carryover in a scheme or whatnot. I just felt it was interesting, a little bit of a reunion for those two sides. And just a familiar name, because I was looking for any name that I might recognize, just given that Louisiana is a first-time face for us.
That's cool. And a name that I know Blue Hens fans can recognize as we get into this podcast. If you read the description, maybe you'll see it on social media. But we're going to have a really good interview with Interim AD Jordan Skolnick coming up here shortly. We get into the Ragin Review interview with Gerry, with Dan and Gerry sitting down together. So we're going to get to those, and they're both extended. They're good length episodes. We don't have the review episode for a review segment for a game coming up. So I just wanted to actually just give a quick recap of a big game for men's basketball before we get into it. Because with Jordan, we talk about football, of course, because this is where our focus is, but we still talk about soccer. We talked about field hockey. We talked about softball. So I also want to give a quick shout out to men's basketball. I said after this game, peaks and valleys of non-conference season. Maybe some like parallels into like a tough loss to an in-state opponent, and then they kind of came back and found some confidence heading into their next opponent. But on the road at George Washington, a really tough team, the Atlantic 10. This was George Washington paid Delaware to come to this game. It was a bye game. I can say Delaware's been trying to get an A-10 team into the Bob for a while now. So if you're frustrated with that, it's not from Delaware's side. I will say that. They don't want home and homes. George Washington, their head coach has been very vocal about them being upset that they can't get game schedule with Power 4 teams. But I have said, like, it works down the chain. I want you guys to come to the Bob like you did a few years ago, and let's keep that going. Regardless, 21.5-point underdogs in this one, Delaware, coming off a really tough loss against Del State, a bottom 5 team at the time in metrics and the net and the KenPom, 364 teams, I think it is right now, with St. Francis still a D1 school for one more year. 21.5-point Underdogs. Delaware convincingly in the first half looked like the BYU game where they had the lead. They kind of like fought off George Washington for making it close, and they held. Second half's when they really extended towards the back half of the second half, winning 70-58 on the road. George Washington, a team that averages like nearly 92 points a game heading into this one, only scored 58. And maybe it was a trap game. I looked into it. George Washington plays the national defending champions, Florida, next week. But and a quick shout out to Justin Fernandez, career high in points in this one. 5% from beyond the arc, finished with 27 points. Christian Bliss, who's been outstanding, pickup from Virginia, 12 points. Was just a rebound and 2 assists short from a triple-double. Macon Emery as well, having a good performance in that one. Those three, a lot of minutes. Justin and Christian played all 40. Macon played 37. So they're already tightening the rotation a little bit, dealing with some injuries. Hoping Cav gets back. We've seen Nana Njoku like slowly work back into this, but overall, just a shout out to the men's team. And Dan, I just wanted to get your thoughts on that before we jump into our interview with Jordan.
Oh, that was sorely needed. That was so sorely needed, and it wasn't expected though. Certainly, it wasn't expected. But you see a team that has resilience to get back off the mat. I feel like I've been using that off the mat phrase so much. I keep going back to that, but it's just that I just feel like it fits so well because following the Delaware State really is being on the mat and just feeling the heat and feeling the scrutiny. Like especially with football season still ongoing. It's not to say Delaware basketball, men's basketball or women's basketball isn't getting any scrutiny or any attention, but it's an attention getter when you fall the DSU. Like it's we got to keep it real here on the show. So to have the response, to get a win in the DMV over George Washington. Think about the different overlaps over time with different players who spent time at both George Washington and Delaware. And yeah, it's kind of cool to think about. So it's so big. It's really big for a Delaware team that was, again, playing with its limited numbers. And I just look at it as, wow, Delaware gutted it out, overcame enough anyway. George Washington double teams. I feel like it's so hard to overcome frenzy to double teams when the guys who are on the floor for Delaware are playing the number of minutes they are, where it's extended minutes. And my thought was in game against GW, if Delaware falls behind at any point, could the wheels fall all the way off? Just because it would be so hard to play catch up against that George Washington offense. But George Washington had misses that GW hasn't typically had this year. And yeah, you covered it, Bryce. What a major turning point, hopefully. And hopefully this is the mark of a fewer valleys later on, because we're getting that much closer to conference games. And Delaware really could use some stability going into a break with peak holidays and then getting back for conference play.
That's a great point. 2 more games left to really hone in the craft, because we say the season for these mid-major schools doesn't start until March, but you can pave your path a lot easier with conference play. So in my opinion, season starts December 29th, I believe it is, when they host Missouri State to start the year for Conference USA play. The women's strong year start, lost to GW at home. They kind of flipped roles in that one, but let's jump into...
Good fight, though, to hang around.
Yeah,
Delaware was in the game late. I was watching both at once. A good fight to be in the game. Again, not trying to set a low bar, but just thinking, okay, it's not like Delaware rolled over just because it looked like the winning streak might conclude. Like there was a good
the final minute there was a fight both ways. ESPN Plus needs to get a split screen going. You can get multiple devices, but that's they got to get that going to keep up with some of these other streaming platforms. But let's jump into
the same 2 schools, and it's wild in both games.
They should have staggered the tip times. But regardless, let's jump into our interview with Interim AD Jordan Skolnick. Kind of gave a preview on what we're going to get into. So let's just jump into it now. Jordan told us he's interviewing for the full-time role this week. Later in the interview, I'll let him get to that and a lot of other things that he touched on within the athletic department. A new edition of Inside the Huddle, or I guess this time I'd say Inside the Boardroom, Inside the Bob Carpenter. Well, one of the two we'll go with for this week, but super excited to now a full circle moment here at Feathers and Field Goals. We had a live show before the 2025 Delaware football season kicked off with this guest, and now we get to sit down with him again after not really knowing on December 8th, the day of recording, what the Delaware football schedule looked like at this point. Like I guess the half glad. I guess just the cautious approach would have been we're getting ready for the first season of the football program, being eligible for the Conference USA postseason in football and for bowls, but now we get a bowl, and this is a super fun part of the process. But overall, just super excited to have Delaware Interim Athletic Director Jordan Skolnick sit down with us for another time at Feathers and Field Goals. So, Jordan, thanks so much for being with us here today.
Yeah, thanks, Bryce. Thanks, Dan. It's really exciting to be here and talking about playing more football games and just all of our teams. And so, really appreciate the opportunity.
We asked you to start the year. Of course, you just talking about the year at hand and asking you questions on what you think it'll look like. But now that we've had 12 games and the first year in Conference USA, just how has this season been so far from the football standpoint?
Yeah, I mean, like I'm so proud of what our coaching staff and our student athletes and the whole Delaware football community has been able to rally behind with this team this year. It's been so much fun, and I couldn't be more excited about what we've accomplished and also what the future looks like. And I think the thing that I take away from it the most is that we belong, and I've heard a lot of people say that throughout the year. And I think it's really the evidence is there that we have just been able to really step up our level of play and show that we can compete with anybody and win 6 games and to beat a number of teams that are also bowl eligible and have some pretty memorable moments throughout the way has been a ton of fun and I'm just really grateful the support, our fans, our students, the whole community behind what we've done this year just shows that we're really we're at the tip of the iceberg here. There's a lot more, and we're at the beginning point, not an end point. And the fact that we get to have one more makes it that much more fun.
Jordan, I wanted to echo what Bryce was saying. Of course, great to see you again. Appreciate your time on a busy week for you, certainly in general, and then leading up to the 68 Ventures Bowl, which, look at it, it's already here. It's about to be upon us, a game week in the postseason. In the FBS. But speaking about the FBS postseason a little bit at large, we'll mostly focus on Delaware, the primary subject of the conversation here, of course. But, of course, yesterday, as we record this on a Monday, yesterday being a selection Sunday and seeing the destinations for different teams across the subdivision in the postseason, we saw how much flux there was in terms of different bowl slots being filled. And we knew going in the FBS postseason was in flux with the FBS playoff model and what that meant for bowl games. It feels like sometimes the G6 is kind of in a rock and a hard place with looking at, there are multiple G6 teams in the playoff this season. If they don't fare well, though, it could always lead to more discussion of or chatter about the power conferences trying to put a fence around the playoff and kind of have more of an exclusive type of format for the playoff, protecting power conference teams. Then you look at bowl games, and you saw, thankfully not the case for Delaware, but one team waiting longer for an opponent in its bowl game because you needed to have a backfill and have replacements necessary in a couple of different bowl games. Where do you see solutions or how do you identify the problems? Are you thinking how I'm thinking? Or I know obviously it's a very positive outlook right now. Delaware is able to focus on its bowl game, but the system at large, I know you've been following it and you've been keeping an eye on the landscape. How do you assess where we are in terms of what the FBS postseason looks like?
Yeah, I mean, there's a ton to unpack there. I love the question because it starts from a place of I think that there's way more positive than anything else, and it's easy to focus on teams opting out or teams not getting in, but the fact that we have grown the number of teams in the college football playoff to what it is now, and to the number of bowl games that there are available at the moment, there's a ton of teams that get to compete in meaningful games at the end of the season. And that's awesome. 60% of teams, had the opportunity to play in the postseason, and so that's a great place to start. I think one of the challenges that I find is unique to FBS football is the fact that there's still in some factions not as much emphasis put on winning conference championships and having this automatic ability to compete for a national championship. That one has always struck me as odd in that there's only 10 FBS conferences. I mean, the fact that I think all of them should have the opportunity to compete for a national championship is how I feel, regardless of if there's, gaps in terms of what people perceive there to be as talent, because we don't play the games on paper. We play them actually on fields and stadiums. And we've seen it at the Power 4 level. There's been plenty of years where one Power Four team has blown out another one. And so to make it about group of six versus Power Four in that way, I think is really taking away from the fact that if you win your conference championship, you should be able to compete for a national championship. Is my kind of most boiled down version of that opinion. And then the rest of it, I think, is so much fun because you don't know where you're going to go, you don't know who you're going to play against. Destinations for fans, new things that we've never experienced before, and so from a national landscape, there's way more cool stories and exciting things that have been created and new places to play that I think it's easy for someone to get caught up in, who's deciding not to play or, feeling like you got left out of something when previously there was only 2 or 4 teams that got a chance. There's so many more good things that are going on. And so I look at it as, for us, there's so much intrigue and excitement that, to flip it back to Delaware in some ways, all the national chatter that happened yesterday, I'm so happy our bowl game got announced on Saturday and we just got to enjoy that moment, be able to be excited for what we were doing, and then let all the other people talk about Sunday what they want to talk about. And we just got to watch it and say, I'm so happy that we aren't sitting here hoping that someone opts out for us to have a chance. It was way more fun to root for Alabama and Florida and all those other games that broke our way than it would have been to be sitting here hoping that some of these teams opted out for us to have a chance.
Oh, we were doing the bowl tracker here at Feathers and Field Goals, and as a former baseball player, me, I always said I'm superstitious on when we got to the 5 wins. I'm wanting to talk about it, but that's kind of when the discussion started when you're trying to watch these teams. I'm glad the 6 wins happened, and it came down to the Iron Bowl. And I appreciate Dan asking that large scale question because that is very interesting to hear. Because now moving from FCS to FBS, it's just a different. I guess like pot that the athletic department sits in, and just watching, I guess, from afar and seeing these discussions, but focusing on the Delaware and the Salute to Veterans Bowl. Just curious how this process was when last Saturday was confirmed that Delaware was one of the 82 teams receiving a bowl. Of course, there's always chatter of, well, the Bahamas Bowl might not happen. Well, how does that leave things stand? But it was confirmed. How was the whole week knowing that there was a confirmed game? I guess just curious on like what you can share on like how do teams from Conference USA and Delaware specifically, like how does the assortment process work? I'm guessing that we know the tie-ins and conferences. There's a bunch of different bowls tied with Conference USA, but I'm sure that there's, I guess, a bucket and like a list that they follow as they go through the assortment and working with the individual bowls itself or the different conferences. So just how has this whole week been and for you in general, and
Yeah.
how did you figure out it was going to be in Mobile?
Yeah. So, well, you guys did an awesome job with the tracker. So kudos to you all. That was something that we were also doing, but it was fun to see how accurate and on top of it you guys were as well. So one of our team members was putting together a list similarly, and we, we're using the ESPN FPI percentages to know how likely it was going to be that all these things broke our way in the last couple of days, in addition to us having to take care of business. And so, if you go back to when we beat Louisiana Tech, we started to similarly not wanting to, jinx anything, but we had to start getting our plans together, and we had a number of iterations on how we were going to communicate, if and when we hit 6, and they were different based on each week. And so when, we beat UTEP and had a chance to celebrate that and know that earlier in the day, and even the night before, there were some good things that broke our way, that we had a chance. It allowed for us to, 1, enjoy the win, and 2, then track everything that was going on. And that night was one of the most enjoyable football viewing evenings of my life, to be honest, because games are stressful, and these games, although they were stressful, we couldn't do anything about them at that point. So we're just going to see how they broke. And so as things unfolded on Saturday, we were in constant communication with Conference USA, and we all were, seeing things the same way, which was, we knew the Bahamas Bowl, which ended up as the Xbox Bowl in Frisco. We knew it was going to happen. We didn't know what it was going to be called, but we knew that those 2 spots were available still. So, as things played out, we, really knew that there was a last few games that we had to kind of see if they were going to end up in the right way. And at that point, Conference USA had told us that, if the Iron Bowl went our way, that, we were going to have a spot, because at that point, Missouri State already did. They had a better overall record. They would have been if there was one spot left, they would have gotten it first. And so we needed that last one to happen. At that point, then we knew that we were going to be given the opportunity to play. And you saw that night, Conference USA announced it, and we amplified and put out a press release ourselves. Once that happened, there was really 7 bowl tie-ins that were ones that we knew that we could be a part of. Now, those can change, where you've seen a lot of other things play out, but there were 7 that the conference was looking at that were likely for us. And so at that point, we'd already put in our preferences of where we'd want to be. And so that was something that we get to do in advance. But at the end of it, the conference, ESPN, the bowls, they're making the selection, right? We don't really get any other say in it, other than we just get to be a part of it at that point. And then throughout the week, we got some indications of, for example, the Missouri State, Arkansas State, and the Xbox One was going to happen. And so that came off the board, and we could start to see the ones that are available. We started prepping for all the ones that, could be the case for us. And for the most part, we were agnostic. We really just wanted to have the opportunity to play, and it wasn't going to matter where or against who. But the fact that it ended up being the 68 Ventures Bowl in Mobile was phenomenal, because the bowl game has a fantastic reputation. The people there have been great to work with. They've got some really fun events around it. And so, it is a little difficult for our fans to get to. So that part is the challenging piece. But the bowl itself and how they run it and all the things that go along with it, it couldn't have been a better spot for us. And so, when that unfolded, we had word, a couple of days before that it was a potential, but it wasn't until about an hour and a half before it got announced that we received the official invitation. And so at that point, we had to make sure everything was ready to go, and we pushed it out on social and celebrated. And I'm really happy that it was the day before the college football playoff was announced, because that just sucked up all the noise there yesterday. And so it was really great to have it on Saturday.
Yeah, timing isn't everything, I guess, when it comes to this. The timing of the game and the opponent, obviously, those are what we're looking forward to, and we'll be discussing, Bryce and I and Brody. But timing does matter. We know from a communication standpoint and the getting the word out standpoint. So no, that it's the little things, right, that make a difference. But speaking of something big and taking you off the field for a second, Jordan, which I guess apologize in advance for doing. Talking a little bit about the building behind you in the virtual background. If for our YouTube viewers seeing Jordan checking in with the Delaware Stadium backdrop. We got a listener mailbag sort of question we want to pass along for you. We were surveying some of our Feathers and Field Goals followers. What would you like to learn? Delaware Stadium and the infrastructure there. We know the softball venue really looking like it's really coming along, certainly in advance of the Conference USA tournament being there. But we did get a question passed along to us, and this gets more and more complicated with student-athlete revenue sharing after the House case settlement and how funds are being invested. So it makes the entire equation maybe a bit more complicated. But we understand continued work on Delaware Stadium and whatever's next to Delaware Stadium is still an objective overall for the department. As much as you can, and there are more processes that you're involved in still right now, I'm sure. What is the stage that Delaware Stadium's in terms of working toward being able to have another phase done? Are phases that folks have heard about in the past maybe formatted differently now than they would have been before, because so much can change over the years? And I also know that this is sort of a difficult question to pose, because not all of this is really formally rolled out by you and your staff.
Yeah, no, it's I'm glad that people are interested in it and they're asking questions about it, because we're working towards what's next all the time, and we are thoughtful about what we share publicly, because one of the things that I always think is important is we want to make sure that when we're ready to go, that it's full steam ahead, right? And so we did that when we built the Whitney Athletic Center and renovated Delaware Stadium. We didn't announce it publicly until 80% of the dollars have been raised. And so that was a really intentional process for us. So, we do have plans to do more in the North End Zone for us. And, the things that are probably a little bit different this time around are the first is that, we've really started to explore, what public-private partnerships might look like, and if we were going to do any type of development with a private partner. And that's happening on our campus and other areas. They've got the apartments going on across the street with Buccini Poland. And I think it's a model that a lot of schools, for those of you that went down to the Wake Forest game, you got to see what they're doing there on the stadium. And there's a lot of opportunity there to think about how do you meet the demands of everything that we need in Newark and at the University of Delaware, while also making sure that we have what we need from, our most prized facility, right? And making sure that Delaware Stadium is taken care of in a way that's going to be terrific for years to come for our fans and our student athletes. So we do have some plans for that. We're actively raising money around it. And I think the things that are interesting for us are, we've got to think about a combination of what we want the capacity to look like, what we want the premium seating to look like that we continue to add. We don't need to add seats just to add seats. There are some games that we are selling out, which is phenomenal, and we do need more seats for those. But to just add more bleacher seats as an example of that isn't going to make the impact that we'd want versus thinking about seating a little bit more comprehensively than that. And I think for anyone that is, sat on the west side now, they can see there's options. So you can choose your adventure in terms of what you want to pay and the experience you want to have. But we also have seats that are still for season tickets under $100 for a season. So that balance is important as we think about what the future of the stadium is going to look like. So that's a long way of me saying we're working on it. We love that people are interested in it, and we've got some plans and some ideas, but we're not ready to announce anything just yet because we got more work to do.
There's so much that we want to get to with, and we want to kind of pick and choose what we want to prioritize. And one of the biggest, I would say, moves for the entire athletic department, when you did take over the interim AD role, was with the field hockey announcement to the creation of the Mountain Pacific Sports Federation. Starting with that, of course, going through one season independent, I kind of added a fun thing with UC Davis to end the year for, I guess, the inaugural conference championship between the two schools, and just understanding that opens up a new chance for an automatic qualifier when you get to 6. So I just wanted to ask you about what that process was, and I guess how kind of it's going, because to get to that AQ, you're still, I guess, a few teams away from filling that for the 2026 season.
Yeah, I mean, we're really appreciative that MPSF decided to do this and have UC Davis to go be a part of it with us. They've been great to work with, both of those entities, to help create a championship experience for our student athletes, because it has been different being an independent than it would have been in a league. And it's our goal to make sure that we can either get to 6 or we have to figure out what the long-term solution is going to be. But having that experience in California for our student athletes and letting them be able to celebrate, we're treating it like every other championship that we have, where they're getting rings and we're putting up all the things as a part of it because we're proud of what they accomplished in doing that. And so for us, there's a combination of, there's a number of affiliates that are out there that may decide that they want to be in a different league. There's also the chance that there are some schools that add field hockey, which are, actively looking at it. And so our hope is that between all of those different avenues that we're able to get to 6 and continue to, be in a position to get an AQ out of that league. But I'm just really proud of what, Coach Solinger did in her first year. She had a really tough schedule. She did that on purpose. And I think it really prepared us well for our last game of the season to be able to go out and get a win, because there wasn't going to be anything harder than what she had to do all year long, competing against the best teams in the country. So that was great, and I'm excited for what they're going to have moving forward. And we are going to need to get some new turf out there. That's our next step, is returfing Rouleau Field, which will be great. We've got the concessions and bathroom that's up there now for fans to be able to come and check out. That was part of our softball project. And so, that area around there is really growing and improving as well.
Hey, great to hear even more. A couple facility updates slid in there at the end. That's great. On top of course, talking about facilities a moment ago. Jordan, getting it into what's ahead for you personally, and looking at things from this perspective as we head toward the end of the semester. Bryce and I have had the good fortune of getting to know you, speak with you, spend time. We appreciate your patience and hospitality on that front over the years. And, our viewers and listeners, maybe they haven't had that chance yet. They haven't had a chance to get to know you or know as intimately what you've been involved in, your responsibilities over time while at Delaware, the achievements you've had. if you could fill some people in on the strengths you've brought, your career at Delaware, what you've been involved in that people can see the results of a little bit in the FBS era that's begun.
Yeah, I mean, I'm lucky. We got an amazing team of people here. So, I mean, our coaches, our staff, everyone at the university that helps contribute to everything that we're doing here in athletics and campus recreation. It's a total team effort. And so, for me, my background is in revenue generation and on the external relations side. And I've been, given the really fortunate opportunity to be a part of, leading this department from a variety of chairs really for the past 9+ years now. And so because of the opportunities that were given to me, what was nice about stepping into this role is there's certainly a different seat that I'm in, but otherwise the decisions and the vision and what we're trying to accomplish and how we want to be integral parts of the university and drive everything forward together as one UD, those things don't change. And so I've been really fortunate. President Carlson has been fantastic to help me in this role in this interim moment. But the next steps for me and for this department are really clear. I mean, none of the things have changed. What we're trying to accomplish is having great student athlete experiences, continue to have all of our students do fantastic in the classroom and win championships. And we have every single one of our programs is resourced to win championships. And so, right now we're at a place where we've seen some of our teams have some really great years, and I couldn't be more proud of like a men's soccer, for example, and what they were able to accomplish this year. And frankly, I think that they were really shortchanged by not getting into the NCAA tournament. We put together a great list of things that we felt like showed that they earned it. But at the end of the day, they took some teams that were lower RPI than us, and they lost pretty early on in the tournament. Not that I was tracking that at all, but I think what it showed is that, we want every single one of our programs, all of them, to be able to win. That's really important. Now, having programs like football be successful is necessary, right? We need to be able to have this as a driver for us, be able to, show everyone and get that national visibility, not just for our athletic department, but for our entire university. And that combination is something that's really powerful. And so, I feel great about the fact that I'm being given the opportunity to interview for the role. So that'll happen this week, and I'll get a chance to, share more about what I believe is so special about this place and all the potential that we have. I've been lucky that most people that have experienced me, whether it's as much as you guys have or others, what you see is what you get. I'm not going to be a different person throughout the process. And I just believe in this place so much. I've had so much of an ability to have this place impact me, like I've hopefully been able to impact others. And, I believe we're just getting started here. So the future's bright here for Delaware Athletics.
Jordan, and thanks for sharing that, and best of luck this week. And I know Dan and I are just appreciate all of our conversation experiences that we've had with you, and appreciate all of your knowledge and insight that you've provided within the athletic department. So really looking forward to seeing how the future is within the athletic department. And thanks for providing your time today. Have you ever been to Mobile before, or is this going to be a first for you?
This will be a first for me, so I've been really excited to check it out. Get a little bit closer to the Gulf down there, and the parade they got going on. We're gonna get to have the battleship tour for our band and spirit programs, which will be really cool. This will be my first venture down there, pun intended, and I can't wait to see it. They've been so great to work with, so it's going to be a lot of fun. And I'm also excited to check out South Alabama's facilities. They've done a nice job down there too, and so it gives us a chance to just see what some other people are doing. And I love the fact that it's got that connection to a college campus in addition to a great city to be in. So yeah, we're excited about it. And yeah, 2 times in Alabama this year for me. So we're just going to get on the right side of this result, and I'm confident that the team is going to be ready to go. They're excited, and they're fired up to play.
Safe travels down. Looking forward to seeing you down in Mobile, and thanks so much for providing your insight and your time with us today.
Yeah, well, thank you guys for everything that you're doing to spotlight our teams and our programs and everything you're doing. And I also just want to say thanks to everyone listening for continuing to support the Hens in all the ways that you do. And we're excited about what's next. So thanks, guys. Go Hens.
thanks for Jordan for making the time, but in a busy schedule, as he said and I said previously, interviewed for the full time role this week, heading down to Mobile on Saturday. I found a time to talk with us. Recapping the season after meeting with him before the season started in Grain Exchange. So glad to have a full circle moment here on the podcast. And now we're going to get into our interview with Gerry of the Ragin Review. If you're a YouTube listener here, it's going to look a little bit different. We had some technical difficulties on our end in terms of saving the video side of it. So the audio is clean though. Normal as can be there, but you're not going to see Dan's face. You're not going to see Gerry's face.
Which, I mean, it's probably on my end. It's like, all right, like everybody was waiting for that. That's probably for the best.
So if you want to go see Gerry, you can go to Ragin Review show to talk about this game. Go look at their work. But let's just jump into that conversation now. I just want to give if you're listening on Spotify, Apple, wherever you get your audio format, nothing's changing. But I just want to give that heads up on the YouTube side, so you're not thinking something's wrong on your end. So let's jump into that conversation with Gerry of the Ragin Review now.
The Feathers and Field Goals podcast continues as we get ready for Delaware's first ever FBS bowl game. Hard to imagine it's already here. It's a good thing, honestly, because the anticipation would only be building more and more. So now getting the bowl game down in Mobile for the 68 Ventures Bowl coming up in the midweek. And now let's get a chance to learn about the Louisiana Ragin Cajuns. It's Gerry Hebert of Ragin Review. Bryce had a chance to collaborate with Ragin Review also in the course of this game lead up. So now it's a great opportunity as well to have the return trip by Gerry. Hey, thanks so much for joining and being a part of this and for our great off-air conversation as well. Already we're seeing those connections, I think, between our two podcasts. Great to see each of these two fan bases getting to know each other.
Yeah, no, thank you so much for having me on, Daniel. Bryce came on the other day. Great segment. We appreciate you guys collaborating with us. One of the things, I told you this before, one of the things we always enjoy is getting to know our foes. We call it behind enemy lines, but we also like to know about our opponents. Obviously, Louisiana and Delaware, it's two totally different programs. We're not really used to playing each other. I don't know if we've ever played each other in anything, let alone this bowl game. But no, we're looking forward to it. I'm really excited to I've gotten to know a lot about the Blue Hens over the last couple of days. I know that you guys have had massive success at the FCS level, especially in football. That's Joe Flacco country, right? That's how I first knew really about the success of Delaware football. But I also wanted to congratulate you guys on the move up to the FBS level. That's a huge accomplishment. Conference USA definitely gained a good sports program in Blue Hen sports to join Conference USA. And, I'm really excited to see what you do at the level of FBS. I mean, first year in the FBS level is the highest competition of football, college football you could ask for, and you're playing in a bowl game. That speaks volumes of the pageantry and the success of your football program. And look, we did some research on the Blue Hens, and I'm not letting that 6-6 record fool us. I know you're a good football team, and we'll talk more about that. But I look forward to sharing a little bit about the Louisiana Ragin Cajuns to your fan base, what we're all about, and should be a good game next Wednesday night. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, only one team can walk away with a winning record. So a lot on the line in this postseason game, matching up Conference USA versus the Sun Belt. Always an important non-conference matchup when you think about the footprint here in the FBS. I know we've learned that pretty quickly, just starting out in CUSA. Louisiana, the winners of 4 in a row heading into this game, so a huge surge in order to get into the postseason. But before we get into that most recent spurt, overall, kind of the arch of the year, how would you describe it, Gerry? How would you describe how this year has gone in totality for Louisiana to get to this point and find its way into the bowl?
A complete roller coaster ride, very volatile. Before the season started, we had Phil Steele on our show. I think it was either late July, early August when his new edition of his magazine came out. And, he had us playing JMU in the conference championship. And we had a lot of high expectation coming into this year. Teams are, last year we had pretty much had a breakout season, first one in a while since Billy Napier had left. in 2021 to go to Florida. Ironically, he's back in the Sun Belt at JMU of all places, as if they needed any more help with success. But this year or last year, we were 10-4, had a regular season record of 10-2. We hosted the conference championship game for the second time in 4 years, lost to Marshall. We were on our third string quarterback by the second quarter, Ben Woldridge, who I don't know if he's still playing for the New England Patriots, but he was with the New England Patriots in the preseason, was our starting quarterback, went down in game 10 or game 9. 6-year senior Chandler Fields comes in, lights it up the last 2 games, gets hurt in the first quarter against Marshall in the championship. So we lost that game. Then we played a TCU team that was pretty good. And we had a bunch of guys that opted out, few key guys that opted out in the bowl game. So we lost that game as well. Finished the season 10-4, but we had a lot of optimism coming into this year because we had a lot of starters coming back on both sides of the football. And, first game of the year, we opened up against Rice in our new stadium, and our quarterback, Walker Howard, who was a 4-star transfer, kind of like the prodigal son, being from Lafayette, transferred from Ole Miss, had to play behind Jackson Dart, so he was tired of going from place to place. Started out at LSU because he was a legacy quarterback. His dad was a quarterback there. Then went to Ole Miss, but he had to actually start behind Jaden Daniels and Garrett Nussmeier. Jaden, of course, wins the Heisman, goes to Ole Miss, starts behind a first-round pick by the name of Jackson Dart, and then he came back to Louisiana because he wanted to come home and have a chance to play. Gets hurt against Rice, and we lose that game. So now we're on to a redshirt freshman quarterback, Daniel Beal. We beat McNeese, gets spanked by Missouri, barely showed up in that game. And then we lose a shocker to Eastern Michigan. Start the season 1-3. Then we go play Marshall at home, rematch. And the first 3 quarters, not playing well. Staring at 1-4, staring at a 1-4 record in the eye. And then Coach Mike Desimo puts in Lunch Winfield, who is a dual threat quarterback. Lunch leads us back from a 17-point deficit to win in overtime, and he gets the starting job from there. And then the next 3 games, didn't play as well, lost a heartbreaker to JMU, lost a disappointing homecoming to Southern Miss at home, and then lost a really hard-fought battle at Troy, where we started the season 2-6. And we were 1 loss away from a losing season. Season would have been over. And then all of a sudden we rack. Something just clicked. We racked 4 games, a 4-game win streak. Things just started to click in Mobile. It all started at South Alabama, ironically, in Mobile, in the same stadium we're playing at next week. So we have some magic in that stadium. So far, I believe we're undefeated there. Knock on wood, that keeps going next week. But once that started, the team just started to click. And we racked the win against South Alabama. We won a big shootout game against Texas State at home. And then we won a really close nail-biter at Arkansas State on national TV. And we followed that up with an overtime win against an in-state opponent in UL Monroe, which put us at 6-6. So it could have been a disaster with the 2-6 start. But this team fought back. We've had some injuries on the offensive line. And here we are at 6-6, playing against the Delaware Blue Hens in the 68 Ventures Bowl. Hopefully we can cap it off with a 5-game win streak, but just kind of wanted to give you a little insight on the roller coaster ride of a season we've had. I would say overall it was more of a disappointing season because we expected so much more. I had us at 10-2 going into the season, but I also can say that we salvaged it with this 4-game win streak, and at least we can actually play in the postseason and have a chance to end this thing with a winning record.
Yeah, the resilience, a theme I'm getting, and something that's been required of Delaware as well. Although Delaware going into this year, just keeping it real, not bearing the same weight of those kinds of expectations that you just mentioned for the Ragin Cajuns. So now, like we alluded to, only one side going to come away feeling happy about having made it all the way to this point in Louisiana, being in the region, being familiar with this destination at the University of South Alabama. How do you think that maybe plays any kind of factor? Just curious, thinking about it's not a new venue at all, so familiarity, comfort, that's a positive. But maybe it might be a little more exciting from Delaware's point of view to be in a new place and have a little bit more of more curb appeal to the trip. Not that the games are played on paper in that way, but I'm just wondering what your sense is. You're on site there in Louisiana. What your sense of the vibe is going into this one?
So for us, it's kind of a business as usual type vibe because I mean this is the eighth straight eighth straight season we've gone to a bowl game. And look, bowl games are almost a dime a dozen now. If you're a 500 team in college football, you're most likely making a bowl. I mean, you saw the number of bowl opt-outs, and it's kind of the changing landscape of college football with the CFP and everything. And that's for a whole other conversation, a whole other topic. But to your point about that, we in 2011, we made our first bowl appearance in over 40 years. And ironically, it was the New Orleans Bowl. I had actually graduated that morning from UL, from Louisiana. So I had got my degree that morning, and then I drove straight over to New Orleans for the bowl game. And I remember the excitement of our fan base because first of all, we had only had like one winning season in 15 years at that point. And then we had not been to a bowl game in over 40. And so we brought 40,000 fans to the Superdome, 2-hour drive to the east to New Orleans. And then you top it, and it was so much excitement with the fans and everything, and it was new to us. And then you top it off, it was a primetime game against San Diego State on ESPN, and we topped it off with a game-winning 50-yard field goal to end it. And I mean, it was just euphoria. And since then, we've gone to, I don't know, 12, 13 bowls. I think in 15 years, we've gone to 13. This is our 13th bowl appearance. So the newness has gone away. Now the standard of the program has risen. And since then, like I told you, we hadn't really won much up until 2011. Well, since 2011, we won 4 straight bowls from 2011 to 2014. Billy Napier comes in 2018. And in 4 years, we have 3 10-plus win seasons, including 2 conference championships, and we finished the season ranked in the top 25 2 years in a row when we had never been ranked in our school history, I think, since the 1940s. Billy had we had our first 10-plus win season in 2019, leading up to the last 2 years where we were ranked, never had a 10-win season. So from 2011 till now, we have experienced sort of the pinnacle of our success as a football program, to where now going 6-6 with a bowl appearance isn't as exciting. But again, it's exciting at the fact that we're playing in the postseason. I would say that the reason why I brought up the 2011 game is because I feel that that's kind of, and I don't want to put words in your mouth or words in the fans of Delaware fans, but I do feel like there is probably more excitement on your end because of the fact that there's so much that has happened with Delaware football. You move up to FBS. You get to play in Conference USA against FBS opponents, and now you get to play in a bowl game in your first year. So not only is it a new experience, it's a different experience because bowl games are not FCS playoffs. They're different. They are different. You're going to get that vibe a little bit. It's not the FCS playoff where we're in a playoff and we have to beat this team to advance and play for an FCS national championship. Now you're playing at the highest level, competing for a bowl championship. You're competing for a different trophy. But there's still a little prestige to it. In the FCS playoff, you lose, or if you can win a game and lose the next round, it's null and void. You don't win a trophy for that. But here, if you win this game next week, you get to have a trophy and you get to recruit off of that. So I'll say the vibe for us is kind of business as usual. It's not as exciting because we're used to it. I would say the vibe at Delaware is probably a little bit higher, just considering the fact that this is new. Again, in 2011, it was euphoric for us to go to a bowl game. I'm sure you're getting kind of that same vibe with your fan base. So there's going to be a lot more emotion going into the game. Now, granted, players, they're going to want to go to win. Like we had, we call him the brand ambassador. One of our starting tight end came in. They're going in to beat you guys. But as a fan, it's a little bit different. It's a little bit different. We're happy to be in a bowl, but at the same time, we're so used to it. Really for us, the euphoria now for us is their conference championships. We want to win the Sun Belt. In 2021, when we did it at home against a good App State team, and then Billy left to go to Florida, and then you had thousands of fans on the field holding up a Sun Belt trophy because it was our first Sun Belt conference championship, unanimous conference championship in over 50 years, or conference championship in over 50 years. We hadn't been in the Sun Belt that long, but it was a big deal. So now our expectation isn't just bowl games. Our expectations is to win a conference championship and find a way to do what JMU's doing right now, playing in the college football playoff. So that expectation changes. But I'm still happy to be in a bowl. It's extra football. I get to hang out with you guys, talk to y'all. If we lose one of those 4 games, I'm not here right now. We're talking about other stuff, worrying about Christmas shopping and all that other fun stuff, or basketball and our rough start there. I don't want to talk about that, but it's a different vibe. But we're happy to still be here and talk some football with y'all.
I share that sentiment from this end of things, and it is interesting because we spend a lot of time on it with the caveat, hey, the players on the field, they're showing up. They're not making that trip to lose. That's for sure, needless to say. But sometimes you do wonder if there's a sense of the fans' energy and just that overall energy, can it rub off and show an extra edge one way or another? But, getting on the field for the Ragin Cajuns, you mentioned Lunch Winfield at quarterback. How does he start things at offense? What's the identity of the offense and really the top strengths in terms of the makeup of the offense now that Lunch really has everything at his disposal by now?
Yeah, so a little bit about our offense. We've always been kind of a run-first style offense. We like to run a multiple out of the shotgun. When we're really, really good is when our run sets up for the pass and our run game is like on track. We've become sort of a haven for running backs, believe it or not. We've actually, over the last 15 years, Elijah McGuire played in the NFL, got a Super Bowl ring with Kansas City. We had Alonzo Harris that went pro, played for the Green Bay Packers for a few years. And one of our bigger names is Elijah Mitchell, down the road in Erath, 15, 20 minutes down the road, ends up playing for the San Francisco 49ers. I think he's with Kansas City now. But we've become this haven for running backs. And so we're going to identify with the rushing attack before. And when you have a dual threat quarterback like Lunch Winfield that goes in, that identity increases and you compound on it. So we're going to be a run first team. What's ironic is Ben Woldridge, our quarterback last year, was kind of a balanced style, had a great arm. We did a little bit of both. We mixed a little bit of run with pass. Walker Howard was kind of the same, a dual threat, but he also was he could be a pocket passer at the same time. Lunch is not that. Lunch, he's Cam Newton. You're going to put him in a rushing package, and you're going to complement our 2 running backs with Bill Davis and Zylan Perry, both of which, I think they're P4 level running backs. You're going to blend them in with the rushing attack. They actually combined for around 1,400 yards. If you combine them both combined for about 13 or 14 touchdowns. And then our offense, I think our rush offense is 29th in the country. We average just under 190 yards per game rush offense. Now, in the passing game, we're 122 in FBS, averaging 156 yards. But don't let that number fool you. We started off, I think our first 3 or 4 games, we were averaging under 80 or 90 yards of passing per game. When Lunch took over in the last 4 or 5 games, we've increased our passing ability. One of our key receivers in Sheldon Sampson, who's a 4-star transfer from LSU, from Baton Rouge, right down the road at Catholic High, Baton Rouge. He was hurt to start the year. In the last 4 games, he looks like an all-conference wide receiver. He's really made up for lost ground. But our identity in the offense is definitely the rushing attack. You'll see us run the ball quite often. And one of the main things for our offense is that we've had a lot of injuries on the offensive line. So we've had to kind of maneuver our scheme a little bit, kind of finagle our scheme a little bit. But in the last 4 games, it's clicked, and we've just kind of stuck with it. It's not the prettiest offense, but we've put some Band-Aids and some Scotch tape together to make it work. And you're going to see an offense that is up-tempo. You're going to see an offense that loves to run the ball. You're going to see Lunch set up RPO left and right. You're going to see some screens here and there, not as often as we would like, but you're going to see guys like Rob Williams at wide receiver. You're going to see Sheldon Sampson in the slant, and you're going to see Lunch. You don't want to give that man time. He's very much kind of like Nick Manicucci, your quarterback, where if you give him time, he'll take off and run. He don't care. But you'll see more of a balanced rushing attack, more of a balanced spread option offense. And I tell you, they've been clicking the last 4 games, and it's been a lot of fun to watch. In the last 4 games, I think in points per game and scoring, we're 73rd. We're averaging 27 points a game right now. But in the last 4 games, we've averaged around 34, 35 points. So our offense is clicking right now. Like I said, passing is not as great. But we're running the ball. We're a run first team for sure, especially with Lunch at quarterback with his dual threat ability.
I mentioned to you shortly before we got started, the Louisiana game that I got to watch live on TV in the course of the regular season was Louisiana against James Madison. Of course, keeping an eye on JMU. And I remember Louisiana's defense that day, I want to say, especially in the first half, like really having JMU stifled a bit. I want to say, and you'd recall better than me what the score was at the break, but I want to say it was a pretty close score. Defense for Louisiana showing up and being part of it. What do you remember about that experience? First of all, just I'm curious about that particular, what you learned from playing against an eventual conference champ and playoff participant, but then also now defense overall for the Ragin Cajuns, how that side shapes up heading into this one.
Yeah, for sure. First of all, that game against JMU, pretty much, that's one of those games where I tell people with our 6-6 record, don't let our 6-6 record fool you. When it comes to talent, we can play against anybody in the conference. I mean, there's a reason why we were in the conference championship just last year. That JMU game, man, I get frustrated thinking about it because in the first half, we dominated for the most part and we threw them off. And, it's funny, the guys on Ragin Review and I have a big debate on whether or not what we should have done before half. And we were up 14-7 going into half. Well, what happened was we had the ball on like their 2-yard line or 1-yard line right before half. We're up 14-7. I said kick the field goal. Everybody else said go for the touchdown. And the problem wasn't necessarily the decision because at the time, my train of thought was you're up 14-7. JMU's offense is so out of sync right now. They had to basically go through an act of Congress to even score that one touchdown before the half. Our defense forced 3 turnovers. They were just so out of sync to where my mindset was you kick the field goal, you're up 2 possessions. Those 2 possessions for JMU it's a mountain climb for them because they were so thrown off. Well, we go for the touchdown, and it wasn't necessarily the fact that we went for the touchdown that bothered me. It was the play call. JMU's front 7 is really, really good. They've got a great defense. They're hands down the best defense in the conference, probably one of the best in the G5. Their front 7 is physical, and we call a run play up the seam against their front 7 instead of trying to run a play action boot to our tight end, which is how we scored, by the way, on one of those touchdowns. We ran it right at them and they stuff us at the line. Well, then they go in at halftime. You just gave them some momentum back and they get ball second half. So you're at their place. They get ball second half. Instead of going up 2 scores, it's 14-7. They're feeling confident. On the second play, they run a flea flicker to start the third quarter. They score and tie it. Now they have all the momentum. Now it's game on. And we couldn't come back from it. And so in those situations, it's a little frustrating because we kind of let the momentum in the game slip away. And then on that 3-game slide that we had after JMU, or with including JMU, we found ways to give momentum back to our opponent instead of keeping the momentum on our side, holding on to leads, and possibly winning those games. And that's what divided us, to me, from a 6-6 record from maybe a 7-5 and 8-4 record. With a chance to play in the conference championship game instead of Troy going to JMU, maybe it's us going up for a rematch. And so when that game against JMU happened, what it proved to me was, number one, JMU's good. You cannot make mistakes against good football teams because they'll find a way to come back and bite you, which they did in the second half. But also, we competed with them. Like, we actually could have won that game. So that JMU game was kind of frustrating because we let it slip and we let it slide. And we let a good team capitalize on our bad decisions and our lack of execution. Look, I know you guys are old rivals in the Colonial Conference with JMU. Honestly, some of their fans, since they've joined the Sun Belt, have kind of had their eyes set on other conferences already. Like, we're going to move up to the ACC, or we're going here, going there, which we're like, look, how about you show some appreciation for us actually inviting you and giving you a chance to compete at this level. But I gotta give them credit where credit's due, man. Like, they have a winning culture there. They have a winning tradition. In the first year that they joined the FBS, they were ranked in the top 25, which is very hard to do. And they just have a culture of winning there. And I hope they go to Oregon and win. They're repping the G5 and they're repping the Sun Belt. And I said it last night on our episode. 25 years ago, if you would have told me we'd have a Sun Belt school vying and competing for a national title in football, you would have thought I was nuts. I would have thought I was nuts for saying that. And here we are. We have a team from the Sun Belt playing to compete for a national championship. And that's a big deal. And that's big for the G5. Now I hope they hold their end of the bargain and compete and go to Oregon and play their tails off and make it a game, because all the pundits, of course, the G5 can't compete, not good enough. Well, you created the formula. We're honoring it. You've got two teams, and of course, hitting close to home, Tulane, another team that's going to the CFP. Two teams in there that I think can compete and are good enough for competing. But no, I mean, I know I'm kind of going on a tangent here, but I got to credit JMU. I tip my hat off to them. They've really taken the ball and run with it since they've joined the Sun Belt in football. But it was a game we could have won. It was a game we could have won.
That's why I asked.
It was,
and I already have to apologize to our listeners. We got Duke's discussion.
Yeah.
It's like, oh God,
I'm sorry, guys. I'm not trying to upset anybody. Yeah, I know.
They did it by. We're talking about the postseason. We're in that time of year now, and it's our opponent that we know about, Delaware. And then it was an example though of Louisiana's defense and of what the Cajuns can do in terms of giving people fits on that side of the ball.
Yeah, we're physical, man, and I'll venture that into to the defense. I mean, I'll tell you a little bit about our defense. We run a multiple scheme. Our defensive coordinator, Jim Salgado's in his second season as defensive coordinator, coached at Buffalo. He's from the New York area, so he's kind of in your territory. He's I think he's from either Brooklyn or the Bronx or somewhere around there. I know he's a big Yankees fan. No, I don't know if he's a Yankees fan or not. I don't want to say the wrong thing, but or he might be a Mets. I don't know, but he's from New York City, and he's New York as they come. He has coached, like I said, he's coached at some northern schools. And he's, like I said, he's coaching the NFL, a great guy, very good at making adjustments. I'm actually very curious to see what he can do against that Delaware offense that you have that's really high powered and can score. I'm going to just tell you right now, I would not be surprised if you guys score on the first few drives and then he starts adjusting. That's what he does. He knows how to make the in-game adjustments. Defensively, I'll just kind of give you some stats about the defense. There's nothing special about our defense as far as, there's nothing that stands out. It's not like we're going to, we don't have a top 5 ranking and anything like that. I will say our red zone defense is 31st in the country. We only have, I think teams have a 79% scoring percentage against us, which is something I guess we can be proud of. So when you get in the red zone, you're going to have to be a little more creative against us. Our rush defense is 116. We give up 189 yards a game. Our pass defense is 86th. We give up around 228 passing yards a game. Total defense, we're 113. We give up around 417 yards per game in defense. Now, granted, a lot of that came from the front end of the season. The last 3 or 4 games, we have given up some opportunities. I do think your fans are probably salivating at that, considering Delaware, you guys have a good offense. But for us, we're very much a bend but don't break. We can force turnovers. We can make some key stops on short yardage. And we will put some pressure on your quarterback. But the big thing for us is, do we let him have room to run? One of the keys to victory on defense for us is stopping your tempo. You're very up-tempo. You spread it out. And if you want to see our defense in action, go watch our game against Arkansas State. Because Arkansas State's offense is very similar to Delaware's. Very up-tempo, a quarterback that can move in the pocket, can run when he has to. You'll have some good receivers. You have a good run game. But there's certain things we can do to stop the tempo. Just to kind of give you a little bit about our defense, some names to recognize. On the defensive line, we got Jordan Lawson. He leads the team in tackles. He's got 30 tackles overall, 5 sacks. Jalen Kreider on the defensive line is 2 sacks on the year, 13 tackles. We've got Darius Miller, 15 tackles, 9 hurries, 12 stops. Defensive line is going to be pretty effective. Jordan Lawson is going to be a guy you want to keep an eye on. He's pretty good on the outside. He can come around and put some blitz packages on you guys. So that's somebody to be aware of. On linebacker, our key guy is Jaden Duggar. Actually got a helmet sticker last week or 2 weeks ago on ESPN against ULM. I think he had like 16 tackles. He leads the team in tackles. He's got 87 tackles on the year, 3 sacks, 52 stops. He's got 1 interception. He's really good in the linebacking core, really quick on the outside. So you'll see his outside speed against your offense. Terrence Williams was a running back, moved to linebacker, 70 tackles on the year. He's really, really good. 32 stops. Cam Whitfield, 19 tackles. We expected a lot more from him. He has an interception on the year. very physical, very fast. And those are the three main linebackers. Defensive backs, I'm going to say this. I think the matchup in your passing game is going to be interesting against our cornerback, especially Brent Gordon Jr., who is a true freshman from Cecilia down the road. He's got 14 tackles. He's got an interception. He covers like glue, man. He covers like glue. I mean, honestly, knock on wood, I'm kind of nervous he's going to go into the portal. I think a P4 school is going to look at him. So that's going to be a matchup that I'm going to be interested in against your really highly effective passing game. And then also on the other side, we have Marion Elam. And then we also have Jalen Clark. One's a senior, one's a junior. Marion Elam, 11 tackles, 1 interception. And then Marion Elam also is going to be a good corner. 13 tackles and no interceptions. I think actually Jalen Clark is a safety. I'm sorry, he's a safety. And then you've got Cortland Flowers, who's also a safety. He's got 2 interceptions on the year. And then we got one of the guys that got reinstated the other day that we're really excited about. We thought he'd be suspended is Tyree Skipper. He's kind of the ball hawk on defense. He's kind of that captain, El Capitan on defense, if you will, especially in the secondary. He's a ball hawk, man. Keep an eye on him. He's going to be really good. So we do run a multiple scheme on defense. Like I said, we're kind of a bend but don't break, but we'll force the turnovers and we'll make the stops and we'll stop tempo. That's kind of our big thing. We'll give up points, and I do think you guys will score on us a little bit, but the key question on defense is, do we stop your tempo and can we force a turnover when it matters? And when we throw teams off on tempo is when we start to capitalize on it with our offense. That has scored 34 points a game in the last 4 weeks. So that's going to be the matchup I'm curious about. And we do have some physicality on the defensive side. I'm actually excited to see that matchup against the Delaware offense. But the million-dollar question is, how do we make adjustments? Because I do expect Delaware to score early on. I mean, most teams score early in the game. But it's going to be a fun matchup to watch.
I gotta tell you, Gerry, too, I shouldn't leave special teams to be the third kind of segment in genre of the progression of the conversation, because special teams have been monumental for Delaware this season. Our listeners and viewers know it, certainly. And for Louisiana, your sense of special teams, moments do you recall maybe throughout the year that are emblematic of how special teams has progressed for the Ragin Cajuns?
So we got spoiled last year because our kicker actually won the Groza Award. Kenny Almendaris, Kenny the kicker, he's no longer with us. But I will say that Tony Sterner, he had some big shoes to fill. He's 18 for 25 on field goals. He's 3 for 6 on 50-plus yard field goals. But he's 100% on PATs. I'm going to knock on wood right now because I don't want to jinx it when a crucial time in the game comes next week and the dude misses a PAT. But he's really good on the anything within 30 yards. He's clutch. When you get to about that 30 to 50 yard is when he misses every once in a while. He hooks it every once in a while. But he's been pretty good for us this year, especially when you have to replace a Groza Award winner there. So, no, he's done a good job. He's a lefty, a redshirt junior lefty. And at punter, we have Nathan Torney. For the most part, he averages 37, 38 yards a punt. He's had some good punts inside the 20, but he's also shanked a few. So that, we for what we ask in our punters and kickers, they deliver for the most part, outside of a few things here and there. Now, Jacorian Norris, who's a redshirt freshman, returned the opening kickoff against ULM for a touchdown. Rob Williams has been a key return specialist for us, has been really good there. So we do have good return specialists. We have a lot of speed. Our kickoff coverage has been pretty good for the most part. So I'm actually kind of curious to see how our kickoff coverage is against the return game with Delaware. So yeah, for the most part, our special teams has been pretty good. But then also too, they've kind of bit us a few times as well. So that's going to be an interesting matchup, especially if, like you said, Delaware has a lot of pride in the special team side of things.
Yeah, Delaware onside kick scenarios, some different clutch special team setups and moments. It's in a game that you look at pretty similarly matched to these teams with the records and different strengths we've discussed heading into this 68 Ventures Bowl. I mean, we'll both be sweating if there's a pressure-packed moment on specials somewhere along the way in the later part of the game. But from what I'm hearing from you, Louisiana is getting its baseline. You're getting a baseline production out of special teams, and that's big.
Don't think we didn't forget about that big win against Louisiana Tech, who is a rival of ours. We enjoyed that nice onside kick recovery added in with that, was it a 53-yard field goal y'all kicked to win by 1 point?
Yeah, just under that, but yeah, a long one. Yeah.
I mean, you want to talk about special teams stepping in at crunch time. That was, yeah, we definitely noticed that. We were very happy that you guys pulled that win off because we got to talk a little smack to their fans after that, especially when you win a game like with an onside kick and a 50-plus yard field goal. I mean, they had that game won. I mean, let's be honest. They had that game won, and the Blue Hens came out, and call them the cardiac Blue Hens that game, came out with an epic comeback. And yeah, don't think for 1 second we ignored that. We definitely enjoyed that on your behalf.
Well, a great overlap there of shared interest in that one. That was funny to share a laugh over for sure. And Gerry, a great note on to kind of conclude us here. Want to have you share for Feathers and Field Goals followers where to find Ragin Review and where to see more of the content about the Ragin Cajuns heading into this ballgame.
Yeah, so I mean, we're all over, man. We're on Twitter, we're on Instagram, we have a TikTok account, we're on Facebook. So just go to at Ragin Review on those platforms. You'll see us. We really take pride in our social media presence, and we're witty at times. We have a lot of fun, and we get a little down and dirty sometimes when it comes to the certain topics with the debates and all that stuff with other fan bases. And we like to talk about it on our episodes as well. But yeah, we're all over social media, man. Just search Ragin Review and you'll find us. And we'll love to interact. And we like to get to know our foes. We like to get to know fan bases from other places, and especially new fan bases that we're not familiar with, like Delaware. And I just want to say before we play this game, may the best team win. But I want to tell y'all, enjoy this bowl, man, because, like I said, I remember our first bowl game in a while, and it was epic. And so to the fans traveling to Mobile, safe travels and experience it, man. Go experience the bowl events. Go to downtown Mobile and have a few brews with your friends. Go enjoy the sights and sounds. Take the full experience in. Like I said, it's a little bit different than an FCS playoff when you have to take a road trip. This is a little more established, right? Like they're going to roll the red carpet out for you guys. And I know for a fact that your fans and the team is definitely reveling in it and taking it in. So no, man, congratulations on this year for you guys. I mean, I will say good luck the rest of the way, but we got to beat you.
Right.
I mean,
this is the way.
Yeah. I mean, I will say good luck all except for next Wednesday night. But yeah, man, it's a pleasure getting to know you guys. Thanks again to Bryce for coming on Ragin Review. And maybe, look, we're not in the same conference, but maybe down the road we'll face each other again. But now we know where to go for all our information on Blue Hen Sports. And you guys know where to go for Ragin Cajun information as well. So good to meet you guys. Always a pleasure. And like I said, outside of next Wednesday, good luck, except for when you're playing the Cajuns, right?
Hey, there you go. We're on the same page with that. Likewise, right? It goes both ways. Gerry, thanks so much. Great meeting, and looking forward to seeing you down there is my hope. So that'll be great. And after this, the Feathers and Field Goals podcast continues.
Thanks so much to Gerry Hebert, 1 of 5 on the Ragin Review. So I think Gerry was a great pick from Nick on their side of trying to figure out when and who could join us for that segment. So it was probably our longest one of the year. It's a fun moment for us to connect with them, and because we have no idea who the Ragin Cajuns are. It's the first match of these two sides I've ever met against. Brody, let's get into the Delaware side a little bit, or maybe it is still the Louisiana side. Maybe it's just the bowl experience as a whole. What's your? If you had to give me one, what's your first part of the 3 and out here at Feathers and Field Goals, and what you're looking forward to in this 6-8 Ventures Bowl?
I think it's got to be juice. I alluded to it earlier. Louisiana, just by virtue of where this game is being held, has a huge home field advantage. Delaware has not played very well on the road. The only road win this year was at FIU down there in Miami, where there may have been very few people in the stadium, and half of them were probably Blue Hens fans, according to some eyes on the ground that we had. And that's not going to be the case this time. People are going to make the drive out from Lafayette to Mobile. It's not so long for them. That's still prime Sunbelt country. It's even Sunbelt West country, I believe, still within the division there. it's going to be up to the players and coaching staff to bring their own energy, to bring their own juice. It's something that they lacked at the Sam Houston game. It's something that led to a comedy of errors during the Jacksonville State game. Is Louisiana the same as Jacksonville State? I don't know. Haven't watched enough tape on this team to know exactly where they are, where I'd put them in the pecking order if they were a Conference USA team necessarily. But this team has to bring their own energy, bring their own juice. That's a huge thing that maybe if we had Scotty Walden on the coaching staff, he could bring the juice necessary to compete here. But thankfully, we don't for maybe other reasons. But all that is to say that regardless if there's a lot of Delaware fans there in South Alabama Stadium in Mobile, which I suspect that there still will be, just given the gravity of this game, the importance of this game in a program standpoint, the way that that Delaware alumni typically have pretty good jobs that allow them to travel to games like this. The $800 flight down to Mobile direct, maybe isn't as much of a problem for some of our retiree Delaware fans as it is for maybe me, or maybe Dan, who just graduated recently. But
we love them. We love them. They're the backbone of
absolutely.
what we're
My
doing.
grandparents who haven't been to a game since the Casey Keeler administration added seat licenses are going to their first Blue Hens game in probably 15 years. And that's huge. They are retired down to Florida. I'm sure there's a lot of Blue Hens fans, a lot of snowbirds who retired down to Florida at one point or another. So they'll actually be closer now than they have been to a game in Newark for a while. But all that is to say, a very long-winded way of saying that this team needs to bring their own juice. I think that they will, just because of the gravity of this game and what it represents for the program. It's not something I'm crazy worried about, but if that juice isn't there, then that's when you can start to get kind of worried. But I think the pageantry and gravity behind this game will allow for that juice to be flowing down there in the OG Mardi Gras location.
Dan, off recording, you're 3 and out. You give me like probably 10 different things you're watching on all three phases of the ball. But I'm only going to make you pick one here. What do you focus on here in the 68 Ventures Bowl?
68 Ventures Bowl, the location we talked about, the opponent. It feels like a little bit of a throwback to like Delaware's days. You hear about Delaware's days in the past, running into McNeese or opponents like that in the neighborhood, and it's kind of funny. It feels like a throwback compared to the games I can remember in the postseason, traveling to South Dakota State, Montana. And Delaware's track record in those December situations hasn't been as good, and Delaware's record in the away games this year in general hasn't been as good. So trying to buck some trends here. You've got that longer layoff into this bowl game, which is reminiscent of really the lead up to the national championship game in the FCS in the 2010 season, which I won't get into any more detail on despite my own memory of. So I think the one thing, Bryce, that I really go back to, setting all those peripheral things aside, would be, man, this is the kind of moment that all was leading up from the announcement in 2023. Thinking about incoming transfers who had multiple years of eligibility to assure that they'd be able to be part of this year, this FBS year that now includes a bowl game. Thinking about the overall list of people who walked in the senior day ceremony. I mean, what a mammoth class. I mean, it is just a huge class for Delaware. Hey, Bryce, I mean, we talked to Fightin Bros, right? Ethan Saunders, thinking about Kyrie Duplessis and the impact that he's had in a short time, and Duplessis part of this mix. Nate Evans, oh man, Jack Hall, Keyshawn Hunter, that defensive line presence and depth. Merge Malumba, he's on this list, right? I mean, and Bryce, you can double check me, make sure I'm not getting wires crossed here. But it goes to Patrick Shupp too as well. Like these mainstays, these absolute names like the back of your hand. and for good reason. They've given so much to Delaware. They mean so much to this part of Coach Carty's time, where they've had so much continuity and carryover with this group of guys, sticking with Ryan Carty. Dylan Traynor, took me too long to say his name. You'd hope with that layoff I mentioned, maybe Dylan Traynor could, I'm not speaking with any knowledge of this from seeing this play out in the lead up, but I'm just speaking from a blue and gold shirt. Crossing fingers, could Dylan Traynor have a chance to go here? I don't know, but it would be one of those names that would be really fun to see have a chance to be out there. But Jake Thal is another one, right? And I didn't name everybody, but it's just picking out some names ready to go. It's such a blessing for the team to have this, and they earned it. So I say blessing, but just because of the external factors that were out of Delaware's control. The team earning this chance and now having the chance, playing especially for those guys who get to follow through this whole journey with Delaware in December in the postseason. I think it's huge because this is kind of that pinnacle of, and again, it's not a New Year's Six bowl, so I'm not saying pinnacle as this is going to be the expectation every year, but anyway, I have to give it a ramble like that, Bryce, because I do feel strongly that it's a weird timeline. I feel like I'm personally shaking off some rust thinking about a game week that's turning into a Wednesday game, and you're just thinking, maybe as outside people like we are, I don't know, my vibe is a little bit, I'm trying to knock the rust off, but I trust that really the team's going to feel pretty dialed, quite honestly, because you think about a coach who's set the tone as we're here to have fun and obviously here to win the game, and then playing for that number of players who are going to be involved. Like, you're looking at Delaware, Nick Minicucci's top 5 in the country in passing yards and attempts, and there isn't a question about, is Nick Minicucci interested in cementing his status as yes, he's in this game, and you like there might be a question in other situations, other programs, where the quarterback has had that much success and has options right after this season. Like Nick would have options if he so desired them after this season, and that's not our situation. Ryan Beard at Missouri State going to Coastal Carolina, we're accepting that job and being announced formally prior to Missouri State's bowl game. Like, that's not the situation with Delaware head coach Ryan Carty. So I just feel like those stars are aligned for Delaware such that it's time to go out and follow through. So, hey, Bryce, I had to do it to you one last time this year, make it a longer, long-winded pitch there.
I'm glad you mentioned those guys because, I mean, Fightin been on the show with us. We had Ethan on. That class is like, I'd say like, I wouldn't like, adds a little bit of emotion for me because that was my first class that I covered as a student here. That's what, if I'm being honest, that class is what kicked off my interest in creating my UD recruiting account. And now we're here today. So, yeah, I mean, I love shouting out Patrick, Dylan, Jack, Fenton, Ethan. Those guys are a part of that class. All 6-year guys. They've done a lot for this program. And honestly, that class did a lot for me. So, like, I'm glad to have a send-off game that I know is the official send-off game. We're watching game 12, hoping that there's a game 13, but like still like mentally prepared for it being the last. So like I'm glad like to know this is the official stamp on like what this legacy is. Ethan Saunders said it best, like we have to be remembered for the right reasons. Now they can be remembered for a winning season. If they can go 7-6 in their first year of FBS, just getting through bowl games is exciting, but they want to win. Fans want to win, the players want to win, the coaches want to win, everyone wants to win. So if they want to win, though, I'm focusing on if they can stop the running attack that Louisiana has. We talked about Jack State earlier. We're going to be inside of Alabama again for a Wednesday night, as we were in October. I don't think they have a running back that scares me like Cam Cook, but maybe the pairing, or I would even say the trio, if you add quarterback Lunch Winfield in, who is an East-West threat running the ball. He scored 9 touchdowns, had 627 yards on the year, but I'm thinking of Bill Davis and Zylan Perry. The pair of them might be a Cam Cook. Like they are scary. They both had over 650 rushing yards and 6 touchdowns plus on the year. Both of them honorable mention Sun Belt. And the cool thing about, I would say, those two and Lunch is all 3 of them, I'm thinking of, like I just mentioned earlier, talking about the new era of college athletics. All 3 of these guys have been members of Louisiana their entire collegiate career. Bill Davis was a freshman in 2013. Zylan Perry was a freshman in 2022. And Lunch Winfield as well. Homegrown has worked his way up the depth chart into being the starter for Louisiana. So I think that's pretty cool, but I don't think it's going to be pretty cool if they run all over the Delaware defense in the 6A Adventures Bowl. So I'm focusing on that. it's a really tough rushing attack, and I think that comes if Delaware can set the tone. Can they get a quick start early? Brody mentioned the energy to start the game, how there wasn't energy in the Sam Houston Stadium. They dealt with maybe some illnesses on the team. It was an empty crowd. Delaware is going to bring a lot of their own energy to Mobile this time. So it's converting it early. Can you control the game tempo like you did against UTEP a little bit? Playing up 2 to 3 possessions, then you can break out the run game. Then you see the Greg Spiller 50-plus yard runs. You can see Joe Silver, back to normal, getting in the end zone. When I think everyone likes to see the Delaware offense connect on both the pass and the run. And I think that's if they can start early, they can get points on the board, and they can control the tempo a little bit and what they want, because if Louisiana can control the tempo on their side of the ball, it's going to be tough to stop. And they've showed that in their November heater. Dan, same order as always. What's your score prediction for this one?
It was interesting for me thinking about reflecting on having a great time catching up with Gerry. That was awesome. Like that's going to be a great connection. We're thinking going forward too, Bryce. But so shout out to him again. But hearing him mention Delaware's offensive tempo, it's like, yes, Delaware is an up tempo genre and identity, like on in total. Yes, I agree with that. But Delaware doesn't have to go fast just for the sake of going fast. So I'm thinking, yes, I agree with him, but also the game doesn't have to be a Wild West shootout. Like, I'm not necessarily foreseeing that because, heck, the team's not necessarily the most familiar going in. Yes, there's a lot of time to prepare with the lead up to the bowl, but there may not be as much crossover video. It's a non-conference matchup here as you would expect for a bowl, so not as much crossover in the video review during the course of the regular season. So I look at it as, hey, I'm going to predict lower scoring than maybe some others, thinking there's going to be a feeling out in the first quarter or beyond. And I just look at certain things that do give me a lot of pause. This is a tough one to go for. Louisiana's number one in the Sun Belt in terms of fewest penalty yards a game, which to me just stands out in a game that each side knows is its final of the season. The emotions, a proclivity for penalties would be something that would stand out to me, because we think about key moments this year for Delaware. Delaware wins helped by drawing a penalty here and there at times. And they're easy to forget. If the opponent commits the penalty, we don't even remember always how those yards were gained. But and then Louisiana's red zone defense. Louisiana, aside from being number one in penalties, Louisiana is number 3 red zone defense in the Sun Belt, which counts for a lot as well, because having some faith that Delaware is going to find a way to move the ball, move it inside the 20, then what happens? So seeing a strength on strength there possibly. Anyhow, that's all just a couple of additional notes leading up to the rationale for the pick here. Delaware, I think there are reasons to pick Louisiana. Delaware hasn't been able to string together back-to-back wins most recently. This is basically a road game for Delaware. This is an unusual spot that Delaware is unaccustomed to, just having the novelty of the bowl game setting with a longer trip for the first time to such a place. But I'm going with Delaware to find a way, because, hey, Delaware has had belief late in games, in close games. Delaware's 2-minute drove it. I'm thinking something like that. Hey, shout out also Nate Reed. Should have been a name that I said in the whole spewing of names that are in that walking class, in that senior day recognition class. Something as close as that, a close late score. Maybe it's by the kick. Maybe it's by trying to hold off Louisiana kick late as well. Going with Delaware 26-24. So I think when we were talking before, that prediction, somebody reminded me, it's like, oh, that's pretty close to the Louisiana Tech game for Delaware. And so maybe I was subconsciously thinking of that kind of final and that kind of trend line of the game.
Delaware is going to get a tiebreaker in this one. They're 6-6, but actually the tiebreaker I'm focused on, you just mentioned the name, Nate Reed. There's 4 games where Nate Reed has had to step out in the final minute of the game to either at maybe minutes too nice. The final 10 seconds of games this year, 2-2 so far. We've seen the UConn. We've seen that eventually led to overtime. We've seen the Louisiana Tech game that you just mentioned, Dan. This is the 2 wins from high moments, and I'm thinking of the Sam Houston, and I'm thinking of the Western Kentucky games. 3 of them were in the Tub this year, which the Tub had some great games. So just that one moment in the Western game way of having an undefeated season in the Tub, defending it. I'm thinking this needs to be a tiebreaker. I'm thinking this comes down to a Nate Reed kick at the end of the game, and so of course I'm going to pick Delaware here to go on the upper end of here. I'm thinking it ends in a 30-27 win with a Nate Reed field goal. Maybe not as time expires. Maybe he needs to put one more through the back of the end zone for the defense to hold up its side of the ball to win the game. So I'm going to go with 30-27. The Fightin Blue Hens over the Ragin Cajuns. Brody, send us home one last time of 2025.
Well, thank you, Bryce. As you know, I do my headgear selection here. On very short notice, I got myself a Louisiana helmet down here, and I have my Delaware helmet over here. But it shouldn't surprise anybody, you know. My record on the year is identical to Delaware's. And that comes from one reason. You know, it's hard for me not to pick the Hens, and it's twice as hard for me not to pick them here, because this is a game that just means too much to this program, means too much to the trajectory of the team in future years. Means too much to this senior class. It means too much to the players who transferred here with 2 years left just for this game, the opportunity to play in a bowl game like this. It just means too much. This is going to be a game, in my opinion, that is high scoring enough to come down to the players, you know, the Jimmies and Joes instead of the X's and O's, as they say. I think it's going to be a high scoring game. You know, like I said, I think both these teams are capable of putting points on the board. We had that discussion with Gerry earlier. I think he said the same thing, where both these teams are capable of putting up points, and I think they both will. Of course, it'll help if the weather's beautiful in Mobile. If we get a torrential downpour, maybe that changes my prediction. But we're hoping for good weather, obviously. All that is to say that I have to take Delaware. Now I'm taking Delaware by a score of 36-34. Those of you who remember the last time that we played a team from a town called Lafayette, we beat them by that score. The very first Nick Minacucci art for the Blue Hens postseason game. A very important game for the future of the program in that year. Of course, the game right before announcing that Delaware was moving up in subdivisions. It just means too much. I think that this game lines up to be either a huge boost in momentum or a heartbreaker for Delaware, and I'm hoping it's not the latter. 36-34. Delaware takes down Louisiana.
Well, this is the end of our game preview shows of 2025. We're excited here at Brothers and Field Goals. We're scheming what we're going to do in the off season. We're still going to have a lot of football content, but let's just enjoy the bowl experience. And thanks for enjoying us here today and being here one more time. If you haven't yet, please like and subscribe, turn on notifications so you can get all of our fun future episodes coming your way. This is just the beginning. To the players, to the coaches, to the team, to the athletic department, to the fans, and to you, Dan and Brody. Safe travels down to Mobile. Excited to connect once we get down there. Thanks for joining us for another episode here at Brothers and Field Goals. See you next time.